So you get into the tech space,
Mhm.
and for all of us, we we get into this process, right? Where we're either chasing money, we're chasing longevity, we're chasing our future, we're chasing, for some people, material things. We get into this this process, and then something, for some people, this doesn't happen to everyone.
Mhm.
Something happens to us where we say, "This is not enough."
Mhm.
I a transitional period starts again. So
Mhm.
you faced a lot of transitions
Right.
throughout your story, throughout your life.
Right.
At some point in time, a transition took place, and you said, "Okay, I need another change." Can you explain how this transitional phase, this new transitional phase, started to take shape?
So it was actually when I left AWS, um, which was like 2 years ago, I think. And then it
Hmm.
was the transition was happening, but I wasn't really staying still enough to understand like what is happening. So I'm thinking, oh, it's just you need to switch companies, right? So I switched from AWS and I went to DocuSign. I was like, maybe I just need a different company, like something new, right? And
Yeah.
when I went to DocuSign, I excelled in my role just like I did in AWS. And I did really quick. So it got to a point where I'm going to bring up God. Everything happens for a reason. And we went on this hiring hold. And during the hiring hold, I was like, okay, a month goes by. I'm like, okay, how are they still paying us? 2 months go by. I'm like, okay, how are they still paying us? So these months are going by. I'm like, okay, maybe I should look for another job, right? And when I started wanting to look for another job, it was like, no. Like, God was telling me no. He was literally saying no. Every time I wanted to entertain the idea of looking for another job, like something would happen. It was strange.
I want to interject a little bit. So you
Okay.
talked about you never had a chance to be still, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking about spirituality, we're talking about God and everything.
Mm-hmm.
What I've learned through life is if you don't take that personal accountability and sit down, sometimes life will sit you
Sit you down.
down, sit
Yep.
our butts down, right? Did you
Mm-hmm.
have a sit down moment, or were you able to say, let me, things are happening, let me sit down, be still, and let me process everything that happened? Which one happened?
I got pulled and I got called to sit down.
Okay,
Like
all right, all right.
I got called to sit down. Like you said, if you don't pay attention, and it's like I've always wanted bigger. I was also transitioning not only, you know, oh, business, this, down the third, but as a woman. And my needs started changing, you know?
Okay,
So there was a
all
lot
right.
of transitions. And I'm like, I had to ask myself at the top of last year, like, what are your desires? Like, what does your life really look like? You know? And I came to the conclusion, even before everything that had took place, I was like, I desire to just be a mom and to be a wife and to have passive income
Hmm.
that's just sufficient. Those are my personal
Okay,
desires. So I came to that
right.
conclusion. So I have wrote down, I want to get paid for living my life. And it's be careful of the things you
Plus
ask.
plus one. Yeah, plus one. I need add me to that list.
I was like, okay, be careful of the things that you ask. And so it got to the point where fast forward DocuSign, I got laid off in September during the huge tech layoff that's still taking place. So I got laid
Hmm.
off in September, and that was like the calmest I felt. Like I was very proud of myself because I was like, sin 2 years prior to that, would have been freaking out. How am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to do this? But it was just kind of like, okay, like, all right. And I just kind of like let it be. And of course, you have connections and people find out. They're like sending people jobs your way. And I knew I was not supposed to be working and I was called to rest because I would have job interviews. And every time right before the interview, I would feel sick to my stomach. I had
Wow.
3 interviews and I had the same feeling, like sick to my stomach feeling, like I can't do this interview right now. Like, and then I was just like, you know what? Maybe I'm not supposed to work right now and let me just trust the rest, right? Let me just trust it. So I was called to rest for like 2 months. And like when I sat down and all the ideas started coming to me, all the downloads, like this is what you have to do. Like I'm talking about step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. So I'm like, what? I was never able to think this way until that resting period.